I don't know if you're out, but I think you're probably, well, you're probably there. But if not, then you will be there in a moment. My name is Jeff Rolka, and my screen is still telling me to get ready, but I think I'm probably live right now because this dashboard seems to be like a little bit ever so slightly behind things. Anyways, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to welcome you to this week's live event. This is your live event. The chat is available for you to ask your questions and interact with your fellow chat attendees. Welcome, Altug. I don't know if you can see me yet or not. Can you see me yet or not? Am I out there? I think I'm probably out there. Um, but yeah. The chat is yours to ask your questions. Be not shy. Be not shy. Every week there is like it's just I think you can never ask like a question, there's always like a reason to ask the question, you know what I'm saying? Like someone else is thinking the same thing if you are thinking that question, I would almost guarantee, because I know that there's a lot of people that kind of lurk in the background of the chat. Anyways, yeah, please ask away your questions. The chat is open. By way of getting started, thank you if you have chosen to subscribe. And if you haven't yet, I hope that you will consider doing so now. Now we're live, it says. So it seems I've been talking now for I don't know how many minutes. Hopefully you can all see me out there. But yes. Thank you for those of you who have chosen to subscribe. And welcome. The chat is open and ready for your questions. Don't really know what else to say, actually. Welcome, Altug. It's good to see you here. Feel free to interact amongst yourselves in the chat. Most people use the @ symbol. That seems to be the universal way of saying I am talking to you. Don't have any questions left over from weeks gone by, so I'm just gonna basically hang out and we will get going as we get going. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Excuse me. So, I think it's live. Yeah, it's live. Okay, we're live. There we go. Of course we can talk about Apogeo more today. I'm happy to talk about Apogeo. If I may mention, there's a Facebook group. Altug is part of it. I hope I'm pronouncing that more or less correctly. Excellent. Glad. Okay, now we have confirmation that I'm in fact broadcasting, which is good to know. I'm always happy to talk about breathing and breath control because it is so much a crucial part of what we do. And I think from speaking for myself, and this isn't necessarily true for everybody, speaking for myself, the focus on engagement is something that actually works very well to calm me down if I'm dealing with any kind of performance anxiety. It's a grounding kind of effect that I rely on to make sure I'm doing a good job. So yeah, if there's anything specific that you have about that, I'm happy to address it. I didn't watch all the videos. There was a bunch of videos this week on Sequencer that were talking about breath control and Apogeo. And so let's see what you've got here. I read about ribcage expansion in east-west and south-north direction. What are your thoughts about this? Good afternoon, JC's Radiant Ray, and hello to you. And she says hello to everyone else. Right. Kashmira Williams, hello to you. Voice exercises for male tenor, Sydney James. Okay, So, the one thing about breathing and expansion is that too frequently there's little to no talk about lateral expansion, and I'm guessing that that's what what you read about east and west is what they were referring to. When the rib cage expands laterally, let me change screens here to see if you can actually see my rib cage. Hopefully you can see my hands. I know it's really dark in here, so you can see my hands. And when I take a breath, there's a good amount of lateral expansion that my hands come out. There, I don't. There's not really much of any expansion forwards. Like I guess that would be like north by what you're reading. And in terms of southward expansion, perhaps some, but I feel the musculature working to maintain my expansion more than anything else. So when I expand, all those muscles are engaged. I'm laterally expanded, and my rectus abdominis muscles are engaged in lifting up towards my sternum, and my back muscles are engaged to maintain that expansion. And as I exhale, those muscles continue to stay engaged to maintain that suspension so that I stay laterally expanded. That keeps the diaphragm in a more descended profile and gets us more of the support, the suspension that we're looking for. There's a lot of talk these days about like 360 breathing, and I haven't read a ton about it, but my assumption is that that's a lot of what, I mean, a lot of they talk about like expanding in a complete circle as if you're kind of a tube, and that I don't agree with. Perhaps a certain amount of expansion, but more the muscle engagement is more of what is acting on the air column in the rectus abdominis muscles and in the back muscles. Certainly, if you were to like those hee exercises that I do, you can see a certain pulsing by the muscles in the solar plex when I do that exercise, because those muscles are acting on the articulation, but they're acting in conjunction with this expanded rib cage and back muscles that are staying engaged in order to maintain that suspension. Let me roll back here. Sydney James is asking about voice exercises for male tenor. There are probably a couple hundred on the channel. If you want to be more specific, I might be able to point you in a specific direction. Striker Kane, Altug and I were commenting about his song and F4, and I thought of a question. We both have a little trouble there. How is a good way of going to it and increasing the resonance? Gerald Ryan says, hello, Jeff. Hello, Gerald Ryan. Burning the midnight oil. Striker Kane, if the problem is occurring ascending to F4, that it depends a little bit on what's happening. You know, if you're getting there and it's strained, then you're either not putting enough airflow over the vocal fold, or you're not, in and of itself, that right there could be due to a number of different causes. Perhaps your secundo passaggio is lower than F4, and you are in fact belting. You're forcing the thyroarytenoid muscles to go higher than what they might normally do. The advice is to work it from the top down. So if that's where you want to go, practice it from the top down with the resonance that you want, and then reverse engineer it. You may not be able to do it melismatically at first. You might have to do it short. You. If you're still figuring out like what kind of where you are in your zona de passaggio. F4 for every male voice that I can think of is in the zona de passaggio. You're either at the top of it, or at you're not really at the bottom of it. You're mostly at the top of it, or you're above the secondo passaggio if you're a baritone. For tenors, you could be right at it, just below it, or basically that. Yeah, for a tenor voice, F4 is like that's it. You're a half step below it, or maybe you're a major second, give or take, below it. So yeah, work it from the top down with the kind of tone that you want. And you may start with short exercises in order to facilitate getting the vocal fold to change shape a little bit better. The short exercises let the vocal fold change shape more easily. JC's Radiant Ray. Last Sunday, I watched a band sing for about 45 minutes longer than usual. Afterwards, the vocalists were straining to speak. How do I avoid this happening to me? Well, I'm glad that you want to avoid that, because that's a really, really bad thing to have happen. And we all fall susceptible to that. I know I certainly have had that happen before. It depends a lot on the circumstances of the band. If you have bad monitors or it's just really loud on stage, it can be incredibly difficult not to strain in order to hear yourself or to, somehow physically feel the experience of singing. Earplugs can help with that, but it can be very disruptive if you're not accustomed to it. In-ear monitors are the best. However, in-ear monitors are great if you have a good monitor engineer, or if your front of house engineer is your monitor engineer and they're really on it, then they can be amazing. But in-ear monitors can be even worse than earplugs if the mix is really, really bad. If none of those things are changeable or possible, then unfortunately it really falls a lot on like rock hard self-control and practice of the material beforehand, and a memorization of what the physical experience of it was like to sing it. So when you practice the repertoire, getting ready for the performance, you not only work on the material and you get all your musical stuff sorted out, but you also really, really focus on, what does this feel like? What does it feel like on my body? Am I straining now? If you're straining in practice, guess what? You're probably going to strain at least as much or more when you're on stage. So work that out first. Make sure that you're not straining in your practice of the songs. And then do your best to remember that physical experience, taking that into the performance. This is very challenging to do. I try not to dwell on difficulties, but on actionable items. But this is a very challenging thing, and I think it's challenging for all of us. Speaking for myself, it's something that when I was working a lot in cover bands was incredibly difficult to do, because it's so loud and you cannot hear yourself, and you're trusting that your memory of that physical experience is what your audience is hearing. And it doesn't always work, quite frankly. In-ear monitors with a good mix are the best bet, and they don't have to be crushingly expensive. Earplugs are a second good solution. Another good solution too is to get the band to play softer, which is very, very hard to do as well, because it can be a very diplomatic discussion to get guitar players to turn down and drummers to play softer. So yeah, I do hope that helps. The stage volume is an ongoing battle for vocalists, because monitors and earplugs and all those things make it very difficult for us to do our jobs, but we have to make the best of it. In-ears are amazing, and again, if you can do that, that's the best thing to do. Carlos Estrada, hello! And Irvis Ligmeta is saying, hello, great job, love your lessons. Thank you, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Nancy says hello, and Arsen Agasaya, hi Jeff, I hope you're doing great. Thank you, I'm doing pretty well. I just have a bit of unusual question. Have you watched Christina Aguilera's Masterclass? I have not, but I will check it out. I have not heard of it. It sounds really, really cool. Karina Chen, hello and welcome. Maureen, welcome. And Maureen is also extending her greeting to the rest of you fellow singers. Altug, shall we lock the rib cage or it must slowly and gradually collapse as normal breathing? Really awesome question. Really, really cool. Very specific. The collapse of the rib cage is what I look at as a sign that you have exhaled too much air. If you watch that video that I believe it was Maddie Hendricks who shared that video within Sequencer. If you watch that video, in the exercise that she gives, she's collapsing on the exhale, and I do not recommend doing that. It defeats the purpose of Apagio. But she talks about I believe it was the Finelli method, and how everyone thought that this particular castrati was doing these ridiculously long phrases, but in fact was just taking these little top-up breaths. And when you do that, you never lose the expansion of the rib cage. So it's not locked per se. Nothing about Apagio is locking and taut. There's engagement and tension in the musculature, but it's a dynamic tension that responds to the needs of the voice. And that is so much of what makes it such a powerful breathing method. So when you're taking those little top-up breaths, you're gonna take them more frequently, and consequently you will not expel so much air that the rib cage collapses. Because if you do go too far with your exhalation in a singing line, you will lose that engagement. But when you're expanded and you just take your little top-up breaths, you don't lose that expansion. And that is where we get the suspension. That's the suspension aspect of the Apagio a breathing system. Karina Chen, can you give me tips on how to sing for good from Wicked, please? Right, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. I wish I had the music with me now. But I think I actually took that back to the other studio. Yeah, what I will do is, Karina, I'll bring the music back, and then I can talk about that next week, because I'd like to have it in front of me just to kind of have it as a reference. I feel like I remember a lot of it, but when you asked that question, I believe we also talked about defying gravity, and I don't want to make the mistake of confusing the two. So, yes, but I'd like to put that off for next week, and I'll make a note to get the music. I have to take more time to write my notes because I've realized that I'm writing too sloppy, and then I get to it later to try to do videos that you've asked for, you being you in general, and then I'm like, I can't read that. Anyways, Royal. Hi, Jeff. I love your lessons, but I have a question, okay? I know how to use my diaphragm, but I have trouble breathing through the notes. Advice. Interesting. Cool question. My suspicion is that you're letting the consonants break up your phrases too much. Focus on your vowels more. Take the consonants out of your phrase and just do your vowels. Whatever it happens to be, like if I make up something, and let's say the words are go to town. Go to town. That G is going to break up the air column. The T is going to break up the air column. So I take all that out. Oh, go to town. And you can play games with it too. Like you can say okay, what would it be like if I only had 10% of the consonants, like 10% a consonant value? Go to town. I know it sounds a little bit mumbly, but it's an exercise. Go to town. You can still hear the melody, and you can hear the connection between the vowels when I do that. And then we get a little closer. Maybe it's 25%. go to town. And then maybe more normal, go to town. But the key there is phrasing through the consonants, connecting from vowel to vowel to vowel. And that, I think, will help you breathe through the notes a bit more, if that's what you're asking about. Leonard, hey, you're really a good teacher. My question, thank you, first of all. My question would be how to make the high notes sound more chestier. It sounds just like a head voice, just with a ring to it. Okay, cool. My first inclination is if you're really in your head voice and you've really connected and you really do have some of the nasal pharynx activated, would be to record yourself and listen back, because the internal experience of the head voice is vastly different from the external experience. Now, let's say you listen to that and it's still not right. Look at the chest voice and how you are approaching your register transition. So if you're, if you're really, really heavy on the chest voice, that is going to dampen a lot of the vibrations as you make your transition into your upper register. If you make it at all. I ended up cracking and belting because I had so much weight on the thyroarytenoid muscles, the chest voice muscles, that it didn't really carry through. And it made it impossible for the cricothyroids to elongate the vocal fold. So now if I back off, now I'm not suggesting here that we change the timbre. We want to find the balance where we've got the right amount of resonance and the right amount of airflow. That will let us go over the transition and then come back down. And more of the resonance of our chest voice will carry up because we're keeping the tissues in the oral cavity, like all the space around your esophagus, the nasal pharynx, the mask, the mouth and tongue. We're keeping that looser, and that means it's more free to vibrate as we make that transition. And that resonance is what translates as chestiness. Carlos, I'm recovering from a sinus congestion and I can't wait to start singing again. Well, just be gentle with yourself. Take your time. And start slow. Wire Nabal. Hello, any advice? I'm going to go with any advice for Oriental vocal. Yes. I have yet to record it, though. I had a request. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago to do more Eastern scales, and I fully intend to do that. One of the things about a lot. I don't want to generalize too much here, but many of the music, many Eastern influenced music is very highly oriented. So you would do well, and I guess it's just a general thought for you, but you would do well to focus on agility in order to make sure that you can maintain as much freedom with your voice as possible. Additionally, thinking about singers that I've worked with in the Indian tradition, there's a fair amount of mask resonance in those vocals, and so I would get comfortable with what that feels like and how to keep the connection, or I should say integrate mask resonance into your vocals so that you have a timbre that is commensurate with the genre. Good evening, Monsieur Maubet. Capone, hello. I sing with light head voice. VDGG, right? Afterwards, my voice, muscles, cricothyroid. Feels when I am just swallowing. Voice is okay, no harsh. What happened? Find new way to sing. I'm not sure what you're asking entirely. But what I will say is this: if you're really, really working out your cricothyroid muscles, it's possible that you can feel a little bit of let's just say that you can feel in your throat that you've used those muscles. I don't want to go so far as to say that it'll be sore, but you can feel, it almost feels like there's a lump of phlegm on in my throat, and I can't quite get it out. I might swallow and swallow and swallow and swallow. That was for me many years ago. That would happen very, very regularly. It doesn't happen anymore. And at the time, I went and saw doctors and things like that, and there was nothing down there, and my voice was operating just fine. But I think I was just continuing to build parity between thyroarytenoid musculature and cricothyroid musculature. So that may be what it is that's happening. I find it. I think it's key that you're not harshing out your voice or getting sore, and yeah, it seems like it's good. Seems good. Nancy, when singing, do I breathe from my mouth or my mouth and nose? Because when I breathe from both, it kind of sounds like I'm gasping for air. Well, your question is interesting. If it sounds like you're gasping for air, then you perhaps are gasping for air, and I might suggest that you investigate where and how frequently you're breathing in the phrases of music that you're singing, and try to perhaps work more breaths in. Additionally, you may give some consideration to the efficiency of your vowels and whether or not they're really as well adducted as they could be, if they are as balanced as they could be given the range that you are singing. I do find it kind of curious that it's only when you do it from both that it sounds gaspy. So presumably, if you're breathing only from your mouth, then it doesn't sound like you're gasping for air. It could be that you're flexing your soft palate when you take your breath through your nose, and if that's the case, then that's just going to make breathing slower and more difficult. So it doesn't really matter. When I request clients of mine to only breathe through their nose, it's because I'm trying to slow down their breathing process. That is not always possible in the contexts of a tune. So perhaps more important would be, if you are gasping for air, can you take more frequent breaths? Can you disengage the musculature around the larynx while you take those breaths so that you don't get the gasp? And evaluate efficiency of vowels to see if perhaps you can get a more well-balanced tone production, if that is in fact what's happening, which is hard to say without hearing you, of course. Karina Chen, ribcage expansion is same as expanding solar plexus. No. The ribcage expansion is a lateral expansion that occurs. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get my other screen up here. So that's what happens when my ribcage expands. I'm wearing black and it's dark in here. Let's see what this does for a second. Oh, now it's just really fluorescently looking. So when I expand, that is where my ribcage comes to. The solar plexus are here. And you can see the little bit of motion there as I pulse my breaths in and out. Much better. Nice and moody. So yeah, two different things, both of which are really, really necessary for us to get good articulations and good tone production. The ribcage expansion is where we get the suspension from. The solar plex engagement is the impetus, the articulation, the tonal onset that has a lot to do with when we begin phrases. Jer, and do we have to watch what we drink and eat to have a good voice? Really good question. What I would say is, if something's really messing up your voice, make note of it so that you avoid it before a show. Obviously, smoking's not ideal. And typically immediately before you sing, hot liquids or alcohol are not ideal. But many people have no issues with that at all. So it becomes a very personal issue with your voice, how your voice works, and the repertoire that you are singing. In terms of eating, for me, what I eat will have an impact on the vocal fold and or phlegm production. The phlegm production obviously can be an issue. But more than that is that I don't ever want to go on stage feeling really heavy and bogged down. So I'm not going to, have like a giant burrito or something like that before I walk on stage, because it's just, it's just like this carb crash and you're so heavy. So usually like a salad with a bit of protein is what I will have before I'm performing, knowing full well that when I step off stage, I'm going to be ravenous. But yeah, and the other side of that is to maintain good hydration. So whatever it is, whatever your dietary constraints are, whatever you like to eat, make sure that you're staying well hydrated. Striker Kane at Jeff. We both did Oh Danny Boy. Great tip on the he ho on. Thanks, and the top down I hadn't thought of. Excellent. Well, that's what we're here for. Wonderful. Monsieur Maubet. I know some people say it's good singing at a very comfortable range, but honestly, I'm one of those singers that does agree, but I also love challenging myself with tough songs. It's actually rather therapeutic for my voice and body. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for everything. I'm getting a little confused with it. I think it happened in two instances. One, there was a question that came up in the chat, and I was also speaking with one of my clients about audition preparation. And one of the comments I said is when you're going for an audition, this is not the time to pull out like your magnum opus project piece that you're using to expand your overall vocal capacity, range, and expressive qualities. Audition time is when you pull out the tried and true piece that you have sung 1,000 times, and you know that every single time you're going to knock it out of the park. Caveat being that it conforms to the requirements of the audition. So, if the audition is calling for a musical theater piece and you're going to go and sing Let It Be, well, obviously you can't do that. That's not going to work. But whatever piece you have in that genre that will really, really be, it's like you're bringing your A game, then that's the thing to do. But yeah, I have pieces I go back to from time to time that I sing entirely to challenge my technical capacity and musical capacity or anything. It's not always the same song. Often it's different songs and things like that. So, yeah, I think it's great to work on songs that broaden our horizons. I think that's very, very good. Karina Chen. The he exercises are good for chord closure, like you said 2 weeks ago. Any more exercises on this topic? Specifically for chord closure, the really good one, and it's in, I believe it's in one of the tonal onset videos. The one that I'm really, really fond of is the one that has the he's with a scale attached to it. He. That exercise, the reason why I like it so much is that you get the balancing effect of the note and breath interplay, and then you get to feel what it's like to have a well-aligned system when you sing the scale. And I that was in one of the tonal onset videos, or it might be called tonal onset video on the channel. But I'll have to think about that. The thing about chord closure exercises is that we want to move as quickly as we can into melismatic singing, so we're doing long scales with a well-balanced tone production. So a lot of times I'll do specific chord closure exercises with a given client when there is a perceived problem. Perhaps the other good tip on that front is to, in your own practice, identify, of the 5 main vowels that we practice with in vocalizations, identify the one that is most well-balanced and use that as your template. For most people, it's A. That one offers the greatest flexibility, but also the most well-balanced approach. So once you do that, A and E, making sure that the resonance is the same. A, A and ah, A, O, A and O, A, and oo. And that way we know that we get a consistent resonance from our template into all the rest of them. You can then switch the order on that. Ooh, A, ooh, oh. Oops, I was supposed to do A on that. Ooh, oh, A, ah, A, E, A. I should have thought about that more before I started singing. Anyways, switch the order, making sure that the resonance remains consistent between the two vowels and it hasn't changed. And when you can go back and forth between the two and then add more in the line, now you're really, really balancing out your tone production. Karina Chen is also saying hello to all you fellow singers out there. Michael, hello, Jeff. Hello to you. Igor Gabriel, answer Karina Chen, please. I have the same asks. I believe I just did. Striker Kane is saying hello to Karina. Marlena, will your exercises help with learning to sing rock music? Yes. Yeah, the vocalizations and the practices on my channel are meant to be what they're looking to do is achieve neutral tone production throughout and over the registers of your voice. So from your chest voice to your head voice, or as I prefer to say, your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice through your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, it's helping you find a neutral, well-balanced tone production so that you have consistent sound, good intonation throughout those areas of your voice. And as you then adapt the resonances and colorations and phrasing for your specific genre, you have the freedom to do that basically at will once you've got everything balanced out. In rock music, you're going to need a bit more mask resonance than you might if you were singing art songs or classical things, although classical vocalists still use an amount of the ping as well, as the bel canto folks would label it. There is perhaps a bit more onus on the rock musician to be intelligible in that we can understand what you sing, but that varies so widely that it's almost meaningless to comment on it. But I think perhaps the most important thing for the rock musician is the adaptation of the airflow exercises such that you have a long and sustainable career in the genre. Too frequently we force ourselves so much that we fatigue early or damage the vocal fold, and then we're not singing anymore. We're recovering. Sandra is saying hello to everyone, and hello back to you, Sandra. Well, Nabel, hello. Any ideas for, I mentioned that before. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, so, but I did talk about that. If you've just returned, what I might suggest is, once this is over, it will be published to YouTube, and you can go back and check it. I've been forgetting to do my station identification, I think, the last couple of weeks. My name's Jeff. Welcome, everybody. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll consider doing so now. Thank you for joining us. The chat's open, and I'm taking questions just as fast as I possibly can. One thing, I want to say thank you, first of all. Many people, I don't always check who, have been using the fan funding option on the channel, and I'm very, very grateful for it. But as of February 28th, that is going to cease to exist. YouTube is taking away fan funding, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. For those that would still wish to exercise some type of donation to keep everything rolling on this end, you can now do so via jeffrolka.com. At the contact page, there is a link that you can use. Gabriel Garcia, hello. Kashmir, just presumably there's more of a question somewhere else. Kashmira Williams, what are your tips on conveying but staying in tune, talking, etc.? I'm not sure what you mean by conveying. Would you mind being a bit more specific? If you're talking about like Sprechgesang, like your speech singing, or if you mean by conveying emotions or conveying a line. What exactly, if you don't mind, that would help me to address your question more directly. JC's Radiant Ray is saying hello to Sandra. Kashmir Williams, conveying feeling. Ah, it's right there. I should have read ahead. The answer to that question takes many forms. One is your facial expression. I know that may not seem like singing, but we are entertaining. We are putting on a show. We are performing, if you will, if that suits you. And how you express yourself facially on stage can have a lot to do with how people perceive you. A great musician and teacher of mine with whom I had the pleasure of studying for 6 years once told me that people listen with their eyes. So if it looks like you're straining and not enjoying yourself, that's, even if it sounds absolutely perfect, people will interpret it as being strained and unpleasant. But if you look like you are enjoying yourself, if you look like you are expressing something facially with your face, then they will pick up on it. I'm now going to cross into the lines of how you would do this musically, not just with your body language. And this really becomes an aspect of what we are as artists and how you want to sort of make your artistic stamp on your music in the world. For me, a great deal of and this is still a work in progress, but a great deal of my expressive capabilities comes in how I put phrases together. The length of the phrases, how I group words, how I group syllables, how I elongate or truncate vowels within a phrase of music. That to me is a big part of the expressivity of the music that I'm making. So, for example, when I look at the and all this is done in consideration of the lyrics, and so I would extol you to consider your lyrics as well. If I'm looking at my lyrics and I want something that's very dramatic, or it's meant to be very poignant, or it's a powerful statement, then I'm going to make it much more legato. I'm going to raise the volume a little bit. I may increase the volume if it's a long phrase, and I'm going to make it a longer phrase if the music will allow for that. Those are the things that I do. Those are the things that I think of as part of what I do artistically. You may do something different, and that's perfectly legitimate. When I think about other singers, like I think about a Whitney Houston. Now, one might argue, and I think justifiably, this is someone who kind of had everything, right? Could do the long phrases, could do the big power moves, had the big ornamentation, had the range, like all this stuff. Whether you like what she's singing or not, there is a lot that goes into those things. And she used those elements so effectively. In particular, I really admire her use of ornamentation. It's for me, it's just right. Of course, she's thought of as a diva, and so she has these highly ornamented lines with lots of fast-moving notes. But it's not so much. It's just right. It's just right for my tastes. And then I think about like a vocalist like Bono. Again, whether you like him or not, he seamlessly combines belting with head voice, with falsetto, and then lower range chest voice. He manipulates the length of his phrases and how he phrases through vowels. Whether you like him or not, he has a masterful use of his voice. Anyways, that's kind of a long-winded answer for in part, I think that a lot of those things musically convey emotion to our audience. What emotion you're trying to convey will depend on what you use. And what you use will depend also on what suits you artistically. Striker Kane saying hello to Sandra. 5280 Coaching saying hey y'all. Hello. JC's Radiant Ray. Thank you. I have not yet learned to sing without hearing myself sing at all. It makes me nervous. As well it should make you nervous. But one time in a studio booth, it worked surprisingly well. Excellent. Well, that is cool. Monsieur Maubet, when's the Google Hangout going to be on again? Oh, yeah. I've been a little busy lately, but I'm going to do that. I know that it's on the radar. I still have to investigate Google Hangouts to see if I can streamline things a little bit more. But since you bring it up, I'll throw something up on Sequencer to get a new one on. But I do have to look at my calendar and see if I'm going to be able to do it before early March. Michael would like to know about the Google Hangout too. Yep, there you go. Also, so in Apogeo, we stay expanded in a natural way, and our lungs body work like accordion bellows. Well, not exactly. No. I don't know if I would call that lateral expansion entirely natural. You will feel quite a bit of the musculature in the back working to maintain that lateral engagement, that lateral expansion, particularly as the lungs are emptied of air. But you have to understand, when you maintain that expansion, you're forcing the diaphragm to stay in a more descended position. So that's not what it would naturally do. If you collapse the rib cage, it will ascend. The problem with that is that once that happens, you lose your suspension. You lose your ability to really support the air column. And once that then occurs, then you've lost support, and basically anything can happen. Usually not awesome things. So it's not this bellowing thing. Suspension is the best word that I can think of to use when I'm singing and I'm really feeling the Apogeo. It doesn't feel like I'm exhaling and inhaling and exhaling and inhaling. It feels more like sound is emanating in all directions, and I'm kind of hovering. I know this is total voice teacher voodoo. None of this makes objective sense. Like full disclosure, I'm not talking in objective terms. I'm talking about, voice teacher voodoo. So it has this feeling of, an engagement, a rounded muscular engagement throughout the core, but a lovely expansion. And the sound has this tendency to feel to me as if it's emanating more than projecting. Or projecting is a bad word, because it's certainly, I have plenty of projection with my voice. But it feels like it emanates in all directions. Kind of weird. I like I said, full disclosure, I knew that was going to be weird. But it's not like a bellows. That's not the experience. 5280 coaching, usually the same time each week. Subscribe and hit the notification bell and you'll be reminded. There you go. I think that's probably about these live events. Retracted Capone. So I just imitate a singer, Peter Hamill, and find a new way to sing for me. It was an amazing moment because it was new sound too that I found. Brilliant. Love it. Also, can you do some exercises that utilize phrases as Bella Signora or any others as in bel canto exercises that may help us in getting the Italian vowels? Sure. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. Absolutely. Michael. Hey, Jeff, I just started practicing singing in my lower register, and I realized that my mid and upper registers are sounding better. What's your take on that? The more that we work on our thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice and work to balance it out, the upper registers will immediately benefit from that better vowel alignment. It's something that I talk about very, very frequently with my clients. If you want to work on your high range, work on your low and mid range. Like that, all of that practice facilitates the upper register. Kashmira, kind of off subject, but I've been watching your videos for a few years now. You've really blown up. Such a great instructor. How has your online success changed your business? Well, thank you. Believe me, like I'm having such a fun time, and I do enjoy it. I take it very seriously, and I do not take it. I don't take the subscriptions or your attendance here very lightly at all. I take it very, very seriously. In my mind, I always have the feeling of like I'm one video away from like everyone being like, "Whoa, that wasn't so good. We're out of here." Um, whether that's realistic or not, I don't know, but hopefully not. The funny thing that I'll tell you, the thing that really changed for me was that I do a lot of teaching on Skype, and that is amazing. I really I love teaching in general. I guess it really doesn't matter actually whether it's in person or via Skype. I really enjoy the process, and I enjoy helping people like find new aspects of their voice and achieve goals, and doing those things is very, very gratifying for me. What has become very unusual for me is that I think because of some of the YouTube notoriety, sometimes people in their first couple lessons can be kind of nervous, which I am not accustomed to. I mean, I'm kind of accustomed to it in that the voice is a part of us, and it's an intimate aspect of who we are, and that I'm accustomed to. But just from the YouTube thing is a little bit unusual for me. I'm glad that you're enjoying the videos. I'm glad that you feel I'm a great instructor. I try my best every single time to answer your questions and to deliver information that has been well vetted and has stood the test of time, not only for where I received it or taught it or read it, but also in myself and in my clients. It's, the stuff that I'm teaching on this channel are the same things that I practice and the same things I teach in lessons. So thank you very, very much for your kind words. JC's Radiant Ray, Kashmir Williams, cool question. I remember praying for Jeff to reach, is that 4,500? Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Can always use prayers. Maddie Hendricks, hi everyone. Wanted to share my experience participating in Nats. Was awesome. Never expected to make it to the semifinals. Congratulations, Maddie. That's awesome. Another great learning opportunity. That's fantastic. Well done, Maddie. Really good. Striker Kane is saying congratulations, Altug. Oh, the straw breath thing is really cool, Altug. Yeah. It's really a fun exercise to do. Particularly vocalizing out the straw can be really instructive, because you will feel, as you try to change the internal shapes between vowels, you'll feel the air column shifting if you're changing it. Great, yeah, by all means, get the straw and give it a shot. JC's Radiant Ray is saying congratulations to you as well, Maddie. So is Karina Chen. Excellent, Karina. I'm glad that the breathing explanation made sense. Good. Michael is saying congratulations, Maddie. Karina Chen, I am weak on singing on chest voice. Any exercises for developing a powerful chest voice? If it's balanced, if you have good vowel balance in your chest voice, thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, then the idea would be to increase airflow, releasing some of the vocal fold engagement in order to generate more resonance. So that's only you're gonna be semi-limited in terms of range about where that's it's just gonna change depending on how high or how low you go. Increase airflow, release vocal fold engagement. Increase airflow, release vocal fold engagement. We want more power through more resonance. If we focus entirely on volume for power, then we're missing the point. That would be the short answer. It does depend a lot on your vowel alignment and your ability to engage more airflow at will in that range of your voice. My fear for you is that you're going to push too hard against the vocal fold. So be very, very conscientious if you practice that. We want to release that engagement so we have more resonance, and that will get you more power. Michael Solano, hey Jeff, you're great, thank you. Glad to be tuning into the live streams for the second time. I have a question about physical exercises. All right. I'm wondering if you have recommendations for physical exercises which help strengthening or isolating muscle groups that are needed for singing. Core strengthening exercises are probably always a good idea. Honestly, man, I think it was 17. I think it was live event 17, which we're almost on our year. Hello, live events. A year of live events. It's coming up in just, what is it? This is 44, so 8 more weeks. 8 weeks, 2 months. Okay, so it's not really that close. Okay, whatever. And I think on 17, I did this exercise, and it goes like this. And if you do that, do 2 or 3 rounds, do them consecutively. So instead of, that's one set, right? That's one. Do that 3 times in a row. And if you're not feeling the love abdominally and feeling the heat happening, then you need to engage it a bit more, or just work up to engaging it a bit more. But man, that exercise is so awesome at getting the articulators in the mouth going, all that, getting all those articulators that work on the consonants. And then the second half is all about engagement from the solar plexus down to the pelvic floor. And you can very easily make yourself lightheaded and feel a real good muscular burn when you practice that exercise. And that would be my recommendation, would be to check that out. I go through it in large detail. I believe it was live event 17, and I think it's the daily warm-up. I think the daily warm-up, the daily full-range warm-up, has a brief segment of that at the beginning of it. And that's what I would check out. Skite. Jeff, when I sing in my head voice, it sometimes sounds airy. I'm sure that it's not falsetto because it's much stronger, but still not that strong that I want it to be. What can I do to improve it? Really cool question. You probably just need a little bit more airflow, really. If you're getting up there, and it just has a kind of a warmer sound to it, then you just don't have your resonances quite balanced. So long as you're sure it's not falsetto. If it's airy, then that's something else. Then you have a gap in the vocal fold, and you're using a little bit of falsetto tone production. But if it's just that hollower sound, then try increasing airflow. Also try backing off the weight on the thyroarytenoid muscles. By increasing airflow as you ascend and starting with a narrower, more well-balanced tone on the bottom, the resonances are more likely to accompany you as you ascend. Additionally, you may find that you need more mask resonance if you have too much of the nasal pharynx sound of that will not be as bright as your mask. Kashmir Williams, speech, singing, and feeling. Which brand of in-ear monitors do you recommend? I think we talked about the expressions, if that's what you're referring to, Kashmira. Karina Chen, which brand of in-ear monitors do you recommend? More than the actual brand of monitor would be how you get them in your ear and your environment. If you have a dedicated sound person who's going to be doing the mix, then I would save my money and get the mold made of your ear canal so that it fits perfectly and it isolates you from the loud environment. I have Shure drivers, the actual phones themselves. And I have an older pair of E3s, which I'm quite fond of, and I have a new pair that I don't remember the model number on, I'm afraid, but they're both made by Shure. And I like those quite a lot. The wireless monitors I really liked because the receiver pack allowed me to set a hard limiter, so no matter what happened at the mixing console, it would never exceed, I think I set it for 80 dB, which is very, very modest for the ear. And I really like that. I like having those protections built in, because your ears, you gotta protect your ears. Protect your ears. So I'd check out Shure, and if you can spring for the molds, then I would do that. If you can't, the foam ones are pretty good. The thing to be aware of, though, is that if you don't have someone working the board, you've got to really, really have, if you can, have it accessible so you can work it on the fly. You also may want to consider setting up like just a stage mic to get some of the ambient sound around you, because when you're in those things, if it's only your voice, it will overwhelmingly be what you hear, and you won't hear the other stuff around you. So you need to have a little bit of your surrounding sounds in there too. But when you get those things working right, it's sublime. I I have such fond memories of performances with in-ear monitors when it's going well. When it's going poorly, not so good. Thank you. I see a bunch of you responding to my my voiced concerns about being one bad video away. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. And Maureen Soltar is saying, well done to you, Maddie. Sandra Earhart is talking to JC's Radiant Ray. And yes, Sandra, yeah, the volume right is really, really, really tough. Kashmir, do you still do solo performances? Any new songs? Not yet. I haven't started. I'm going to be doing some new performances in the very, very near future. I don't want to say I'm working on a new record, but it's very, very early days. Very, very early days for this one. And so the writing for the record is still taking shape, but I am getting ready to start performing some more again. I did do some performances early on when I moved to London, but I got so busy with this channel and teaching, and I have twin daughters, which keep me very busy. And so I haven't really been performing as much as I'd like, but I intend to do so in the very, very near future. Sandra, what I don't like are earplugs to hear myself. Yeah, earplugs are rough. You know, etymiotic ones can be better, and those are ones that are molded to your ear canal, and they have like -15 or -25 dB plugs that go into the mold. And those can be a little bit better. I wore those on and off for a long time, but in-ears are way better. Everybody, I'm just about to wrap it up. Everyone, thank you so much. Really, really, really great sessions. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for your questions. Stryker, you have a great week too. JC's Radiant Ray is talking to Sandra, and we'll message you on Sequencer. Have a great week to you too as well, JC's Radiant Ray. You're very welcome. Bruno is the last question I'm going to take. How do we tell the difference between a naturally worn-out voice after singing, exercise, and vocal fatigue due to wrong vocal technique? If you're worn out after you're singing, that's vocal fatigue. Or if you're on stage and shouting and screaming and stuff like that, or trying to be heard over monitors, that's something else too. That's vocal fatigue. But just by doing your practices, your exercises, you shouldn't feel fatigued or worn out or hoarse. You need to address the balance of your voice and your airflow in order to have a more sustainable tone production, so that you can sing and grow and expand your range and do all the things that you want to do artistically for as long as you want to do it. Thank you, everybody. Awesome session. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Until then, take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Bye.